I thought this was pretty neat. I've never seen a white buffalo with my own eyes, and driving out to the range on this particular day, the American Patriot Ranch in Texas had a couple white buffaloes in their front pasture. The scope was not connected to a rifle, and this is not affiliated in any way with American Patriot Ranch. Thanks. What we have today is a Hogster-Digital unit. Comes in your typical black box. Included is a manual with full instructions. Got a soft padded bag with a main compartment and a secondary compartment. In the main compartment, we have an included 940 IR. Says 940 on it right here. Push button top with three selection levels: low, medium, and high. It's also fully adjustable on the front for wide or narrow on the beam. We have the Hogster-Digital, or the Charge as it's known, with a quick disconnect mount, fully adjustable, also has a D-ring built in. For a lanyard style, you would connect the D-ring to the clips, and then you could use it as a monocular with the included strap. And then on the smaller accessory pouch, we have a battery extender, so your battery extender would adapt there and would give you 4 to 6 hours of increased power. Otherwise, you would run it with 2 CR123As for about 3 hours of power. Right here. Be sure when you close the battery compartment you press firmly. Also for power is a magnetic omnidirectional port with USB for an external battery pack. Very robust magnet, so it doesn't come off inadvertently. We have the IR Picatinny Weaver mount, adjustable. You'll need this at night for sure, as this is a digital night vision scope. It requires IR light. Necessary tools that go along with, and a cleaning pad. So we're going to go ahead and move this over to the rifle, shoot down range, and get started with a review. Here on a beautiful March 2024 afternoon with the Bering Optics Charge, otherwise known or labeled as the Hogster-Digital 35mm night vision scope. I have a Remington 700 in an MDT chassis in 270 Winchester that will be zeroing this optic on. So in front of me I have three key components. I have the scope, I have the IR light with its mount, and the power supply, which is two CR123As. To get started with the Bering Charge scope, you insert your two CR123As into the side and be sure you press firmly down on the battery compartment. There's two ears on either side here, and both have to engage internally. So give good firm pressure down and make sure both of those ears are set, otherwise in recoil it's apt to back out and you lose power. Okay, so the batteries are in. Bering sends these out universally, and your rail width is going to vary depending on make and manufacturer, right? So you're going to have to adjust the adjustment nut on the Bering Optics mount to fit your rail. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to go with 4 slots from the back. Make sure it's firmly in. Start to apply pressure, and it's loose. As you use the throw lever to apply the pressure, you ought to get pressure about 45 degrees out. That's when it ought to firm up and require you to firmly press through the pressure to lock it in. What I just did on the other side was basically just throw it over. There was no pressure, no resistance. So in the unlock or open position, you press, and then the nut is exposed on the other side. I'm going to go ahead and turn it a full revolution. And as you let go, it should recede into the mount so that the nut will not move or back off. So still in the open position, 1, 2, 3, 4. Putting the cross recoil lug in the 4th spot, 1, 2, 3, 4, right there. Slight forward pressure to lock it in. And as I throw, I am getting pressure at 45 degrees, and I will overcome that pressure with my thumb. No tools. You don't need to hammer it on. You beat it on, it'll probably damage some component. So never tools, it's toolless. Use 2 thumbs if you have weak hands. Go ahead and use 2 thumbs. But that is on there all the way flush. All right. Next up is the IR light. It comes in 2 separate pieces. It has a adjustment nut here for tension to your rail, and then a screw so that as you insert the light into the mount, you can provide tension. It has an internal plastic collar to allow you to, once you put pressure on it, sort of direct it. It's a very nuanced aim, and you'll have to do that at night. So before you get into an actual hunt situation, you'll want to turn this on at your desired range, typically 100 yards or 200 yards, and you'll want to see where, focus this down to the most narrow beam, almost to where you can see the outline of the IR light with the scope, and then go ahead and focus that IR beam centered to your view. That way as you pan out and you do wider field of view or IR light splash, you get a nice even distribution of light, okay? So that's going to be what you need to do later in the field. So I've loosened this up. I'm going to try to install the IR light into the mount. I will take the screw cap off. That way it's nice and thin there. I want it mounted on the right side so that if I have to adjust, I come off the rifle and the trigger, I make my adjustment, and then I come back, right? You can, what I'm saying is you can orient this to be on the left side or the right side. If you prefer to leave your hand on the gun and adjust forward with your left, that's your preference. So making sure the internal plastic collar is not kinked, I'm going to slide this through. So that took a little bit of working I don't have a flathead with me, but if you had a flathead, you could insert it into that seam and just gently pry this up so that you can slide your IR light through. Once the IR light is through the mount, you can go ahead and put your battery supplies back in and screw this down most of the way. You don't have to screw it in all the way right now. Counterclockwise first till the threads catch, and then clockwise. Okay, make sure it's off so you don't burn any battery while you're doing installation. Okay, I'm going to leave that loose for now, but there's that adjustment, that slight adjustment using that internal plastic collar. So I'll leave that loose for now. I've got plenty of scope rail on this bolt action rifle. There is no way to mount the IR light onto the physical scope itself, which I prefer that. You should never hang more weight off your scope. It puts more stress on the scope mount and the rail itself. So this is meant to be mounted on a rail elsewhere on your weapon system. I have a long rail up front here, so I'll go ahead and get it in place. And then apply tension. And again, no tools, but I'll go ahead and use 2 thumbs here, 2 hands to tighten that on. And now that that's in place, I'll start to apply final pressure to the tension screw for the light. Okay, that takes pretty good pressure to move. I don't want it to get knocked in and out of the truck or the buggy as I'm hunting or as I'm moving through the woods. I don't want it easily knocked off course. So where I have it tensioned right there is actually going to take a good bit of force to move. So I'm going to back it off just a tick. To where I can adjust it later. Okay, I'll throw this in the bag with me in case I need it later in the vehicle. So from the top side, that's what you're looking at. The IR light is mounted forward of the actual objective lens, which is preferred. If you could mount it all the way up here near the muzzle, even better. You never really want to mount your IR light behind your scope. You'll get a shadow from the objects that are in front of it. It'll impede the light flow, and it'll cause problems for you for getting a good clear image. So always forward of the scope in some capacity. This is what my rifle system gives me, is the ability to put it right there. It won't show as I'm looking through the scope. You won't be able to see the light. It's still far enough off to the right. What I do see is that I'm going to have some interference with my brass catcher. Okay? So in this case, I would need to either take this all apart and switch the mount around and the light around so that it's on the left side. But this is a bolt action rifle and I don't plan to get crazy tonight, so I'm going to leave it as is and just not use a brass catcher for my rifle. Okay, so now that that's mounted, I'll go ahead and get seated here and get the rifle bagged up. Bering Charge does not record audio, but it records video. So for the sake of this review, I'll go ahead and try to record all shots through the scope, but I'm going to run my camcorder so that I can talk out loud on what I'm doing. I want to make note, you press the menu, the middle button, one time quickly, and the short menu comes up. Day mode, night mode, screen brightness, reticle selection, reticle color. The very lowest is exposure level, and the default is a positive 1.0 value. So this was the default. And again, the Bering Charge is so sensitive to light for the night vision performance that during the day, on a direct sunlight day, the target will appear washed out at the default setting. So right here at 1.0 exposure, I really can't make out my target downrange. So Bering gives the user the adjustability. I'm back into the short menu. I'm on the bottom icon, which is exposure, and I'm going to put it at minus 2.0. I just flipped that to minus 2.0. And now I can see my sticky bullseye downrange. So that's the kind of stuff you want to get sorted out at your range session. That way, as you're in the field, you know what that exposure change does. And at night, if you're suffering for distance, make sure your exposure is back at the 1.0 value, which is default. Okay. These are 150 grain bonded bullets. I'll go ahead and take 2 shots, and we'll go down and mark them and then try to get zeroed. Okay, I'm bagged front and back. I'm nice and steady here. Okay, so first shot. This is at base magnification of 3 times. Okay, recording off. And to put the scope in standby, I press and hold power, and it's the top option where it has a slash through the screen. There is a power symbol below it if you want to power off completely. So I have it in standby to preserve my CR123 ace. To go down and see what those 2 shots did, mark them, and then come back and make an adjustment. All right, so I'm down here at 100, first 2 shots with the Bering charge. I don't find my impacts, so it's probably going to take a pretty good large adjustment. Okay, so apparently when you drop the bolt out of the MDT chassis, the rear of the stock prohibits you from bore sighting and seeing down the bore. So we have moved the target to 50 yards. Brian's down there right now in the final stages of setting it up. And we will attempt to hit that base, that target baseboard or the target itself at 50 yards, and hopefully we make contact. Looks good. So stand by. Spotter ready?
Ready.
Safety off. I saw dust behind the target. Okay, let me take one more. I brought plenty of ammo.
Okay.
Alright, let's go look.
They may both be at 6 o'clock.
Alright, down here at 50 yards, point of aim was here. And impacts were about 13-14 inches low at 50. Alright, verified at 50 yards that were low about 13 inches, so I'll wake the scope up. I will enter the 0 menu. And it starts at X, but I'll move it to Y. It leaves a static dot in the center of the screen, and the reticle moves. So you place your reticle over where you impacted, leaving the dot where you aimed. So that's Y minus 26 inches and X 3.29 inches. So I'll lock that in. And it saved successfully. I'll turn the scope off. And now I have the pleasure of going to move the target from 50 to 100 yards. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1006, 1007, 1008, 1009, 1010, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015. About 15-second startup. One more. Okay. All right, so we've got this one solved.
At 100 yards, after making an adjustment at 50, I'm 2 inches high. So I'll go back to the bench and I will adjust the x-axis over, and then the y-axis I'll go up to about right here. I do want to be about an inch high with a 270 at 100 yards. That gives me some leeway at 200-yard shots. I love it when a plan comes together, right, Brian?
Right.
So we'll leave it there. I won't obsess about the 0.25 inches right. We'll just call that me. But I am in the hot zone. All right, we just did a digital zoom progression test with the Bering Charge digital scope at 100 yards. My point of aim was center of this hand warmer. Ignore these two. These were from a guy shooting thermal just a while ago, but his target was pretty much open. So the four above it are the group from the 270 Winchester at 100 yards, and that was at base mag, 2 times, 3 times, and 4 times. So that's acceptable in terms of tracking. That's about what the gun shoots with a day optic in terms of spread. So they are relatively all near each other, and I feel comfortable using the digital zoom to take a shot. So what I'm going to do is, it's a little higher than I'd like at 100, so I'm going to go ahead and go make an adjustment and shoot a couple more and try to get them right in between these two sets here. All right, so the range session for today is a success with the Bering Charge. Made that adjustment. These were the final two at 100. Ignore those. This was where it was grouping the initial range session I did for the intro part to this review. That's where I had it, so a little bit high on today.